Hi, this is Kevin with RVFix. Today I wanted to talk about the basics of water, sewer, and power when you get to your campsite. So to begin with, the first thing you're going to have on your unit that's supplying power is going to be your battery set up on the unit for the 12 volt side. So that's going to run, tongue jack, our lights, if you have a slide room, awnings. Pretty much the majority of the things are going to run off of your battery on here. So it's always important to make sure your battery's nice and charged up before going camping, especially if we're dry camping. Now, if we're at the RV park, I'm going to show you setting up that way. But like I said, that is the beginning of the majority of all your power is going to start with that battery. Next thing we're going to have is going to be your shore power. So on this particular unit, we have a 30 amp twist lock that we got to hook up. So we'll show you how that goes. So we're going to start right here on the trailer. Now this is just a trailer we're using for demonstration purposes. You might have a 50 amp twist lock. Your port can be anywhere on the side, on the rear of the trailer. It's just different from manufacturer to manufacturer or the size of the unit. There are some that have hardwired in cables as well. So what I mean by that, you wouldn't have a plug that you're actually hooking up to. It would just be wired into the trailer and you pull it out of a hole. But for this particular instance, like I said, it's a 30 amp. We have the 3 prongs. So we're just going to line them up on there, put it in, twist it to the right. And then you also have this collar that threads on. That's just kind of extra security of this not being able to twist back or get yanked off while you're using it. So we're hooked up right there. Bring in our other end. So again, if you're at an RV park, there should be a power pedestal for your lot that's going to have your outlets. So what we're looking for is our 30 amp receptacle. So again, 3 prongs, you can see how they're positioned on there. You should be able to tell which outlet you're plugging into. Before you plug your shore power in or unplug it, it is always recommended to turn your breakers off. The reason being for that, if something's drawing power and you go to plug it in or unplug it, you'll usually see a little arc or hear it kind of arcing out like that spark electrical sound. That is why we turn our breakers off before we plug or unplug the shore power. So we go ahead and hook that in, flip your breakers on. So now with that plugged in, that's actually recharging our 12 volt battery on the front. And now we have the ability to run all of your 120 volt appliances. So that's going to be generally your microwave, your outlets in there where we're plugging in like a blender or a toaster, stuff like that. The air conditioning in there is going to be ran off of the 120 volt as well. And then depending on what type of water heater you have, it might have a 120 volt element. But just keep that in mind. Like I said, that's our 120 volt side. The next thing I'd like to show you is how we're going to hook up for sewage. Okay, so now hooking up for sewage at a dump site. Obviously this would be something if we were taking our trailer to a dump station, or if you're at an RV park that has on-site dumps for each specific spot. If you were dry camping or somewhere that you're not hooked up full-time, where you don't have a dump at your site, your trailer has to get pulled to the dump site, just make sure your knife valves are closed before you begin camping. And I'll show you the knife valves when we get over there to that side of the unit. Also, you're definitely going to want some gloves. I mean, as careful as anybody is not to spill anything on their sewer hose, it's best bet just to have some gloves so we're not touching anything that might be contaminated. Okay, so whenever we're getting ready to hook up, you can see on here we have the little hooks on here. So this is pretty much a universal way that RV dumps hook up. It's just this 3-inch hose with the little hooks. The only real differences you might see, there are some units that have a macerator pump is how you dump your tanks, and that will come with its own little skinny hose that's already hooked up that you would run into your dump station. But like I said, the majority of your trailers, motorhomes, you're going to have a regular just RV sewer dump. So we're going to take this guy, we're going to come down here, we're going to take our cap off. Doing this part, you always want to be careful as well, just because even with your knife valves closed, you might have a knife valve that's leaking through letting sewage water out, or you might have residual water in the pipes as well. So this one's pretty simple. Our knife valves are right here, right by our dump. But on bigger units, sometimes this knife handle might be in a position where there's a long run before here, and you dump your trailer, then you go and move it. Well, if there was water sitting at the bottom of this pipe, it had a low spot, all that water rushes over here to the cap. So when you get over here to take this off, you never know, you might have a little bit that's going to come out. So again, gloves, and then just being careful when we're pulling that cap off there for any spillage. All right, so once we have our cap off, we're going to go ahead, and your sewer hose just fits on like that, and then we just twist it, and those little hooks lock around the pegs on there. Now our sewer hose is in place. Once we're hooked up, when we are actually dumping is the only time we want to open up your knife valves. So when this trailer is just sitting and being filled up, we leave those closed, especially the black tank. That is the most important one, that you leave that closed until it's at least over halfway full. The reason for that is you always want to make sure there's enough liquid in that black tank to help flush the solids out. If you're using that tank, like if we open that knife valve and just leave it open, all the water would be running out. Any solids, your toilet paper, stuff like that would just be building up on the bottom of your tank, and you don't want that. It's going to cause you blockages. Your tanks are never going to read right, stuff like that. So, like I said, sewer hose hooked up. Our tanks are nice and full now. So the first thing we would do when we're dumping, we're going to open your black tank knife valve. We're going to let that one drain out. Once that's done draining out, if your trailer has a black tank flush, which this guy does right here, you would hook your hose up to your black tank flush, run that for a good 10 minutes or so. That's just helping clean out that black tank. Once we're done running that, the water's turned off, then we'll go ahead and close your black knife valve. Then the next thing we would do is open up your gray tank. We would let that drain completely out. Once that's done draining, we go ahead and close it again. Now, if we're packing up, we're getting ready to leave, the tanks have already been dumped, we would go ahead and take your sewer hose off. And then before you store this hose, the best way to help make sure that you're not leaving water inside of this, contaminated water, before you're storing it. So you unhook it, you want to lift it up nice and high. That's going to help all that water rush down to that end. And then you're simply just going to come and walk it down just like this for helping to get to work all that water out of your hose. And you just walk it down to this end for dumping it out. On this end here at the shop, they got them zip tied in place, but whenever you're hooking up your sewer hose, it's just an elbow that fits down into the sewer dump, and that's how that piece would be on there. But like I said, when we're getting ready to put it away, we'd simply just walk that hose all the way over here to get all the excess out of there. You'd unhook your sewer hose from here as well, fold it up, throw it in a trash bag or however you store it, put it back in the unit. All right, once our sewer hose is all disconnected and put away, do make sure you get your travel cap back on there. Like I said, just for any residual water, stuff like that, so we're not leaking out of your plumbing. If you get caught doing it at an RV park, you get quite a bit of trouble. Even if it was gray water, they consider it to be wastewater. It is against the law to let that be just leaking out onto the ground. So like I said, make sure you get your cap back on there. All right, so when we're getting ready to hook up your fresh water hose into your city water connection, one thing that is recommended through all the manufacturers is going to be a pressure regulator. So this guy specifically, it's going to drop that water pressure to between 40 to 50 psi, and that's just what it's rated for running all your water through here. We're not over pressurizing anything like that. Now when it comes to where you hook these up, it just goes in line on the hose, so you could put it, if you have the room, you could put it on your spigot before your hose. I know some people prefer to hook it up that way. If there's no room putting it over there, you can always hook it onto your hose before you hook into your city water right here as well. But once you have your pressure regulator in line, we go ahead and get that on there. Then we just go ahead and hook up to your city water connection. All right, once that's on there all nice and tight, you just go to your spigot, turn your water on. This is going to pressurize the water system from the pressure of your hose. It's not putting any water in that fresh tank. Like I said, we're just using it when we have supplied fresh water. Now, if we were getting ready to go camping where there is no water hookups, what we'd want to do at that point is put some water in the fresh tank. All right, so like I said, if we're getting ready to go camping where we don't have water hookups, you're going to find your freshwater fill on your unit. Again, this is just the style that's on here. A lot of them are the gravity fill, but there are a few different styles out there where you might actually thread onto here and you have a valve you change. But for the purpose of this video, we have our gravity fill. You just take your hose, you're gonna set it in there, then you would go turn on your water spigot, and that's gonna fill up that onboard fresh tank. That's what your water pump would actually be running off of, like I said, if we're camping, not hooked up to that city water. Once we're all filled up, you turn your water off, pull it out, go ahead and throw your cap back on here. Now, while you're filling that, the monitor panel inside does tell you how full it's getting. Or say if you forget, you're not watching, what's gonna happen is it'll just start spitting water back out of here. So you just make sure you turn it off at that point. Another important thing with that fresh tank, when you are done camping, you are done using that water, make sure you open up your fresh tank drain and drain that water back out of there. You don't want to just leave that stuff sitting in the unit, even if it's for a couple of weeks not being used. That's just stagnant water. It's a good way how you get smells or stuff like that going on in your water lines or your fresh tank. All right, like I said, that was just the basics of supplying power into your trailer and hooking up your sewage, dumping the tanks. If you do come up with any questions or something you feel like we might not have went over, go ahead and leave us a comment down below. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like and subscribe.
Thanks for watching. If this video didn't solve your problem, don't worry. We're here to help. Give us a call at 1-844-66-RVFix. We'll diagnose your issue quickly with a certified technician on a video call, get any parts and warranty processed, and if needed, we'll coordinate a service center or mobile technician to get you fixed. We'll handle it all so you can get back to camping.